Hi, everybody. Welcome to Cooking with Chef Carole and the start of our holiday season. My name is Wendy Sachs, and I'm happy to welcome you to our monthly series. We're presented by Plant Powered Metro New York, and we're co-sponsored today by the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. And I will say we're delighted to partner with the JCC again and again and again. We've been doing it on and off for many years, but particularly happy because this week we are hosting one of really the among the more celebrated plant-based researchers and doctors. Dr. Michael Greger will be joining us live at the JCC in New York on Thursday, December 7th. So I've got more details to follow, but thrilled the members of the JCC are here joining us. And of course, all of you who are across the country, including Seattle, I just saw, joining us, in Maryland, I know. So excuse me, thank you for being here. Got a bit of a cold. So Plant Powered Metro New York empowers people to achieve better health and overcome chronic disease through a whole food, plant-based approach to nutrition. We offer evidence-based education, resources, and a grassroots network of support to create community and to inspire change. Together as leaders, organizers, and educators, we raise awareness about the dramatic health benefits of a whole food plant-based diet, empower individuals to make their own lifestyle adjustments, and lead projects that spark changes in food policy, practice, and food culture. And this is one of our pillar shows every month, Cooking with Chef Carole. General announcements: it's December, holiday season, dark leafy greens and cabbage and Swiss chard and kale and collards. All the winter vegetables are prolific at the farmers markets now. I was just there this morning. Winter squashes, butternut, acorn, you can have a ball even with your vegetables in the wintertime. And as usual, we encourage you to buy organic or even better, regeneratively farmed vegetables because the soil makes a difference. Okay, guidelines. Please let us know where you're from in the chat. Please ask questions in the chat. Carole and I usually allow time in between things to answer all your questions. And if we don't get to them during the show, we'll try to reserve time at the end, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can. And then if you're enjoying the presentation, please like us on Facebook or on YouTube because your likes make a difference. All your clicks make a difference. Okay, quick announcements. I promise you we will get to the show. But we do have Plant Powered Metro has super exciting news this whole month. It's a very, very important month for us. This is our end of the year fundraising month. We have a $100,000 match being offered to us this month if we can raise matching funds up to $100,000. So I will be asking you now at the beginning of the show or at the end of the show, if you're able to, please donate generously to us this year. We have all kinds of programs, including this one that we offer for free. All of us volunteer, and the only way we keep going is by your support. So if you're in New York, some exciting events that we're offering, most fundraisers. We do have, as I mentioned, Dr. Michael Greger, who is launching his new book right here in New York City with us at the JCC and also at SUNY Downstate Medical School. So on December 6th, his new book is called How Not to Age. He'll be at SUNY Downstate Alumni Auditorium from 4 until 5:30, giving a talk, signing books, answering questions, and then there'll be a private reception in a private home afterwards. Both of these events are available. You can sign up for them on our events page. And the reception is a fundraising event that'll benefit both Plant Powered Metro and nutritionfacts.org, which is Dr. Greger's not-for-profit, and he doesn't take any personal money off of any of the proceeds that go to nutritionfacts.org. Buffet dinner will be served, and yeah, it'll be a good opportunity to mix and mingle and meet Dr. Greger. And then on Thursday, December 7th, he will be doing another talk, and again, have the books available. We'll sign books at the Marlene Meyerson JCC from 7:30 until 9. And in this case, the book signing will be before the event, and the books will be on sale at a discounted price for both events. So then on Sunday, December 10th, from 2 to 4, we have our second annual holiday dessert potluck. Carole, we need you back in New York for this. Anyway, it's a super fun event on Fifth Avenue in Harlem, and there'll be a tasting contest and giveaways. And yeah, if you're in the city, please join us for that. And then an online event, very, very special, December 12th. There's an event called Nourishing Families with Plant-Powered Nutrition. And the co-authors are Brenda Davis, another luminary in the field, and Dr. Reshma Shah, who are the co-authors of the book. And they'll be talking about the impact of plant-based diet on growing children. So that'll be online. You can sign up for it on the website from 6 to 7 p.m. on December 12th. And then final announcement, and I'll repeat them at the end. We will be opening up registration for our January Jumpstart. So we have another 21-day Jumpstart coming up. And it's just wonderful people who are for people who are just transitioning to plant-based diet, or anyone who might want a refresher. The online presentations are up to date with the latest facts on nutrition education, and we've got cooking demos and all kinds of things. So if you want, please join us. It's very reasonably priced, and it can be for first-timers or long-time practitioners. So finally, thank you again to all of you who may have participated in the Plantathon. It's not too late to donate, and all donations, as I said, will be matched dollar for dollar up to $100,000, and we're getting closer to our goal. So please join us. Please donate if you can. All right, Carole, that's it. What's on the menu today? I know you have.
Oh my gosh, it's all a wow. That programming is a wow. I can't believe all of it, and I'm sorry that I'm not there. But I'm sorry that I'm not there. But I'm here, and we're here together for the last month of the year. And I decided that we're making kind of holiday things that are what I call showstoppers. We all eat too much during the holidays, and we put on too many calories, but there is a way to at least take some of the things that you really love that can be really beautiful and maybe traditional, and make it somewhat healthy. It's not to say that these two things that we're making today are full of calories for sure, but you're not eating it all the time, and it's a special time. So we are going to be making manicotti, which is something that I actually really do like. It's different than cannelloni. What is the difference between manicotti and cannelloni? Manicotti is, they're both tubular. Cannelloni is usually a smooth tubular pasta that's thin, and the manicotti usually has ridges, but it's also tubular. So it's a little bit of a production because we need to assemble things, but some of these things, if you feel overwhelmed by just looking at the recipe, because we have to make a ricotta, what would be a ricotta filling, we're making a simple marinara, and then we have to make it all assembled together. So if it feels overwhelming to you, definitely take it in parts. You can make the marinara ahead, you can make the filling ahead, and then one day before you need to assemble everything. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to make a cake that is actually not my recipe, but something I made a couple years ago, actually, from Forks Over Knives. And it's something that I think is a real showstopper. It's really beautiful. It's full of carrots and cranberries, and it has a chocolate ganache. And it's a very simple cake made in a loaf pan. So we're going to make that cake, and we're making the manicotti. Those are the two things. And I'm going to get started because we've got a lot to do, as always. And you'll ask questions, and Wendy and I will try to address adjust things as we go along. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to start making a simple marinara. Now, if you're super lazy for any reason, you could buy one in a jar, but the one in the jar is likely to have oil and salt. So why not just make a simple one yourself, and it doesn't take very much time. And I'm going to show you how simple it is. So what we have for this marinara is we need garlic and we need onions, and then we need a can of tomatoes. Now, you could use any kind of tomatoes you want. I recommend using the crushed tomatoes because they have a little more liquid in them. But you could also use the whole tomatoes, which I like very much, the no salt tomatoes. Again, try to buy your tomatoes that have no salt in them so that you're not bringing home the salt in the can. So you could use whole tomatoes. This is Bio Nature. It's a company. They're Italian tomatoes that I really love. These are whole. You would just make sure that you crush them before you are cooking them if you use it. But I bought a can of crushed tomatoes that is from my local grocery store. So what we're going to do very first thing is we're just going to get the onions and the garlic started. And we don't need a lot of onions here. I suggested in the recipe that you use a half of onion and just cut it up fairly small, right? Pretty small, the onion. I don't want it to be small dice. I want it to be really minced. It's almost like you're mincing the garlic, right? And what I'm doing is I'm adding a little bit of water to the pan, and we're just going to start to saute these onions right now. Just get them cooking. I'm going to put the burner up a little bit. And we're just going to start to release their own natural sugars. Again, we're not cooking them in any oil. You could cook them in broth if you'd like. And I had a very large onion, so I ended up using just a quarter of it. And it yielded a half a cup of onions. It's up to you how many onions. This is, again, a simple sauce. You can make any little variations and changes that you want. It's just that I'm just going to show you how simple it is to come up with a marinara on your own, that you don't have to just buy a jar of it. So we're cooking these onions, and I chopped like 3 to 4 garlic cloves, and I actually ended up with a little extra, but I want a big heaping tablespoon of garlic, okay? That might seem like a lot to you, but it's actually not, because you want the marinara to have a really strong flavor, right? And that's really going to come from the garlic and the spices, and already it's smelling so good. And I have just a little bit left, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw it in. Sure, I could save it, but it might get lost in my fridge. I'm not sure. Sometimes things do. So I just might as well put that little bit of extra that I cut, and that's going in there. And then what we're going to do is we have different herbs. Now, if you don't have a lot of herbs in your pantry and you don't have every single one of these, you could use just the Italian seasoning and maybe use, we have a teaspoon of oregano, a teaspoon of basil, and a teaspoon of thyme. So that's 3 teaspoons of herbs. So if you don't have all these herbs individually, you could just use 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning, and that could go right into your sauce, super easy. But we're going to put 1 teaspoon of each of these herbs, and people ask me how long herbs can stick around, and they actually can stay around if you take care of them for a couple of years. Mine never lasts that long, but you don't want to keep them in the heat. You want to keep them away from the oven. You want to keep them in a dry place. And the mistake that a lot of people make is they measure their herbs right over the hot pan. And what's going to happen is steam is going to go into your herbs, and then you've added moisture. So you do want to be just careful where you're measuring. And I'm just going to do a teaspoon of each. And as I do this, I'm not measuring, as you can see, but I'm just rubbing these herbs between my hands. And I'm keeping the jar away from the steam of the onions and garlic cooking. Because again, I just don't want there to be steam going into the jar. And a lot of people make that mistake. And then you kind of ruin your herbs that way because you've trapped moisture into your jar of herbs. So we have oregano, basil, and thyme. And again, I'm just measuring in the cup of my hand. And it's about a teaspoon each. Okay, if you're short on something and don't have one thing, now I see this is sticking a little bit. I'm not in a non-stick pan. I'm in a regular stainless steel saute pan. But the minute I added that little bit of water, everything loosened up. Nothing is sticking. You see, it's all moving around, and it smells already like fantastic. Just those herbs, that garlic, and those onions are making it delicious. Now, usually you do put some kind of chili flakes in a marinara sauce, and I tend to put a little more maybe than normal because we're not having salt, right? And salt is a way of bringing up the flavor. So I tend to use a good 1/4 teaspoon, sometimes even a half, and because I want it to be, this is going to really bring up the flavor, the red pepper flakes. So you can't forget those, okay? That's very important. So you have 4 herbs in there right now. I'm just going to make sure I have some water nearby in case. We're going to give this a stir. Again, it's not sticking, but I see right in this one spot, it's sticking just a little. And the minute I put a little bit of water, it literally loosens up. Again, I'm not in a non-stick pan, I'm in a regular pan. And look, it's looking delicious. And I don't know, this with some mushrooms, you could just be in total heaven. And then we're gonna add our crushed tomatoes. Okay, so those are gonna go in there. And crushed tomatoes are kind of unique. I don't buy them very often because I prefer the whole tomatoes. But for this kind of marinara, it's actually perfect. I told you all last time I cooked with tomatoes that I don't like diced tomatoes for some reason, the little square tomatoes. I don't know why. And then I usually give it a little water. This is just my own technique. It's not in the recipe, but in order to loosen some of the tomato that's in there, I just like rinsing the whole can out and putting a little water in the sauce. And I'm gonna lower this now to a simmer. This is just gonna cook right next, oops, I just threw some out of the pan by accident. I was very messy. I don't like that. I'm gonna just wipe that up right away. It's like, so it's not cooking on the burner. There, that's better. And that is gonna be our sauce. So you see how simple marinara is, right? Simple, simple, simple. I'm gonna get rid of that can, get rid of the spices. We have some fresh basil for when we are assembling. And now we're gonna move on and we're gonna make our filling while this sauce simmers lightly, okay? It's just gonna cook lightly. It's gonna cook more in the oven. I just remember, sometimes I add a carrot to the marinara because it's an additional sweet flavor. And I have a bunch of carrot ends actually when I peeled carrots for the carrot cake that we're making. So I'm just gonna float those in there just for flavor. They'll eventually come out, but I have them. They're in the stock bowl. And so might as well just, that is a habit of mine. And it is a trick. Many of you probably know that putting a carrot in the marinara is a good thing to do. It adds just a little sweetness, which kind of balances out the acidity in the tomatoes. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is spinach. We need, well, first we need ricotta filling, which we're going to make today from cashews. Now, I've made this filling also if you have an allergy to nuts for some reason, or you are really watching your weight, then you don't want to use the cashews. You certainly can do the same recipe, only with tofu, okay? And any kind of tofu. It could be firm, extra firm. It could be the silken. Any tofu works, and you'll just puree that in a food processor. But I having made both these dishes, with the ricotta or with the cashews or the tofu, I just tend to like the creaminess more so and the richness of the cashews. So that's what we're doing today. And I have measured out 2 cups of cashews. This should fill all of our manicotti, 2 cups. And hopefully I won't have any extra. If you end up with extra, you can use it, I don't know, in something else if you want. I have soaked these overnight. And I do tell you in the notes that you, if you're in a hurry and you don't have time to soak overnight, you can just put the cashews in a bowl and boil some water and then pour some boiling water over it and then just let it soak for like an hour and then you're fine. You could do the same thing. They'll be ready to go. It's just what happens overnight is they really expand the cashews. They almost look bloated right now. And the longer that you let it sit, the creamier that it breaks down in the blender. Okay, so let's get this going, this part of it. So I have 2 cups that I have drained already, and that's going in here. Now, if you didn't want to use so many cashews, I haven't tried this, but I did have this idea when I was recently making this. You could use half cashews and half tofu. That's one good idea. The other good idea that I have is you could use half either tofu or cashews, and you could use cannelloni beans to kind of so that you're not having just nuts or just tofu. You could add some beans to make this creamy filling that you're going to make, or you could even use some cooked cauliflower, and that would add more flavor to your filling, and I think that also would be a good idea. So I haven't tried those, but I'm just putting them out there for you in case you're a creative person and you want to try something, you know, different other than what I'm providing today. So I'm going to look at make sure that I don't forget anything. So technically we need about a half a cup of water, maybe a little bit more. So I'm going to get like 3/4 of a cup just in case we need more. And then I'm going to run down the list. Flaxseed is something that I put into the filling because when I used to make this filling in the way old days of before becoming a vegan, I would always put an egg mixed with the ricotta. So I don't go and make necessarily a flax egg, which we know is 1 tablespoon of flaxseed, ground flaxseed with 3 tablespoons of water. I literally just put in 1 tablespoon of flax seed, and that's good omegas for us, and it will help the filling become a little thicker. So I do put the flaxseed in, and then I say that we need 1 tablespoon actually of apple cider vinegar. And I guess I didn't measure that out. Now that's just to make it somewhat a little bit sour. If you don't have apple cider vinegar, you can always replace apple cider vinegar with a lemon juice. Okay, so it's kind of an either or thing. I wrote apple cider vinegar because I prefer, but because I save my lemons for when I really need lemon juice. But apple cider vinegar works perfect. And then the next ingredient is nutritional yeast because we need it to be like a cheesy flavor, and the nutritional yeast acts as a cheesy flavor. And I say 1 to 2 tablespoons because sometimes I'm not a fan, personally, of nutritional yeast tasting too much. So I'm using 1.5 tablespoons right this very minute. And then I've measured, here is 1 clove of garlic, and I'm putting 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder in there. And then eventually we are going to put some nutmeg. We could put it in now, but for some reason I like doing it when we're mixing the spinach. So I'm going to just hold off on the nutmeg right at the moment. And then I also like holding off just on the black pepper. So the 2 things that I kind of feel like are finishing things are the black pepper and the nutmeg. And the nutmeg gives it a nice added flavor. So now what we're going to do is take this to the machine, and we're going to take our water and we're going to get it so that it's really pureed and really creamy. So that will just take a minute, and just let me do that really quickly. I can pour most of the water in right now, but not all, because you don't want it too thin. It's better to have it thicker than thin. And whoops, I'm not doing this a very good job here. Stop that for 1 minute. This is such an invaluable tool for the Vitamix. It's a stomper kind of, and it really does help push things around. And a lot of blenders don't have that, and it is a tool that I super like. I'm gonna add a little bit more water because I can see that it's blending, but it needs a little help, a little more help, and I'll get it going. Enough. I was suddenly looking at this thinking, oh my gosh, I wish we're making cheesecake, and we've done that before, and it's pretty similar to this filling, only the difference is you don't put any garlic and onion powder, but this is the same way that you would go about making a cheesecake. And I like my trick with this thing. I have to just get a glass, but when I use this little stomper, I immediately put it, instead of leaving it on the counter for it to roll off the counter, which drives me crazy, I just immediately sit it up like that, and then it's kind of stable, and I'm happy that it's not going anywhere. And we're going to get a bowl. I thought I had a bowl out, but I guess I don't. I think I put it away when I was trying to clean up. And we're going to get this great spatula. They do make a spatula. If anybody owns a Vitamix, Sur La Table makes a wonderful, wonderful, what I call a needle nose spatula, and it goes right into the bottom. So you can see that that's really thick, right? And I was really careful about adding the water. And I think it would depend on the amount of, how long you've let things soak. You might need a little more water, a little less water. So I do say in the recipe that it's a half a cup of water is needed, but you might need a little more. So just take your time when you're making this for the first time. I've made it several times now. Now, one complaint that I often have with the Vitamix is that you can't take off the bottom. And it's not like the food processor or the NutriBullet where you can really open things up. So I could spend another 10 minutes here just cleaning this out because I don't like leaving anything in the container. But we're not going to do that because we are on a time schedule. So I'm just going to leave it like this and just leave it like that. And I will have to clean out the rest because there's definitely some filling left in there, and I won't let that go to waste. Okay, so this is literally, you can see that it's thick and really super creamy. Okay, so the next things that we're going to add, we want to finish it off with the the nutmeg and the black pepper. Right now I'm just going to go ahead and put a couple turns of fresh black pepper, and I suggest that you use about a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. The nutmeg is a wonderful flavor. And if you happen to, I don't know, when I learned about fresh nutmeg 100 years ago, I can't even imagine buying it already ground because it's the most heavenly thing in the world just to smell it. It comes in a little, looks like a little tiny little walnut, but it's a nutmeg. And I have a little microplane here. It's literally made just for nutmeg because the top comes off and it allows you to store the little nutmeg right in the container. And if you grind too much, you just put the lid back on for the next time. So I'm looking for about a 1/4 teaspoon. Again, this fresh nutmeg is super special. And we just want about a 1/4. We need a little more here. And then what we're going to do is add spinach. Now, I want to tell you, this summer when I was growing vegetables in the yard, I had so many beet greens that I actually made this same exact dish in crepes, not in manicotti, not in tubular pasta, but I made it inside crepes. And here's about our quarter, just about there. There we go. We're going to put this little lid back on. That gets stored. Any extra stays in the container. This is made by Microplane, and it has a little lid. And this just gets put right back into the cabinet, just like that. It's a really great little thing for the nutmeg. And oops, there's one piece I left out. So we have our black pepper and our nutmeg. And we are going to get our spinach now. And what I was saying about the garden is this summer I made the same dish only with beet greens. Now, when I use the beet greens, the whole ricotta turned pink. So maybe it's something nice to keep in mind for Valentine's Day, or maybe you want it pink or red for Christmas. I don't know, but you can use any greens. I also recently made it with a mixture of spinach and kale. And you could use chard. So don't limit yourself to just spinach, but I'm just using spinach right now. Now, I bought a lot of spinach, a big gigantic bag, and I have been steaming everything these days. You could saute it really easily with a little water in a pan, but basically you want to end up with cooked spinach, okay? This was just steamed. It was in the pot. It was a huge pile. Almost 14 ounces, almost a pound, but not quite a pound. And we're looking for at least a cup. Now, if you don't want to cook your own spinach, you absolutely could use frozen spinach. That is fine here in this dish. Now, what this spinach has is a lot of water in it. And I left this bowl here, and I left all of this here on purpose, actually. And I'm just going to put this here, because what we're going to do is we need to, before we use this, we need to squeeze out all this water. Okay, sometimes people put it into a towel, like a towel, and just squeeze it all out. And that's one way of doing it. But right now I'm squeezing out this water. And I would not throw out this water. I would put it in the smoothie tomorrow or some other soup or something, because it's got, you still have vitamins and it's spinach water basically. And I think I have just a hair too much, but we're just going to use all of it because, well, I could eat it. I've been steaming. I have to mention this right now to you. Since Thanksgiving, I've been steaming potatoes like regularly instead of baking them in the oven. Baking has like a nice flavor of its own, but there's something about putting a bunch of white potatoes or sweet potatoes into the steamer. They cook so fast and they're so creamy, and it's a really different texture and flavor. So this little steamer has become like my best friend lately. I have been super using it. It hardly ever gets put away. It ends up washed in the strainer, and then it goes right back into the pan because I'm suddenly steaming the next day. I'm just going to stir this sauce. It's looking really great. I should give it a little taste to make sure that it's okay. I'm sure it is okay, but doesn't have to cook long because it's going to cook in the oven. And it tastes delicious. I don't think it needs anything. You can definitely taste all the herbs. And so we have this spinach. And if I had a measuring cup to show you, well, maybe I could use this, maybe show you.
Carole, I'm going to interrupt for a moment just while you're on the sauce, tasting the sauce. Are you open to a few questions about the sauce?
Sure.
And then we'll move on to the spinach. Question came in that could you blend the carrots? Would you ever, okay, I'll just read the question. Could you just blend the whole thing together in a blender after the carrot soaks in the sauce? Could you blend the sauce and the carrots together, or would that not taste good?
No, it would be fine. You could do that. You could definitely do that. I mean, the carrots, just so you know, are going to come out. Okay, I'm not. The carrots are in there just to kind of release their flavor, but and help with the acidity of the tomatoes. But I don't even put carrots in the recipe. I just had carrots on the counter, so I threw them in because it's a natural thing that goes with marinara.
Great. And then you already mentioned the pan you're using is stainless steel, so that question got answered. And then one of our audience is not vegan, however, is interested in eating healthier. And she asked if she could add an egg to the cashews instead of or in addition to the flax. And I indicated that health-wise, go for the flax. But do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I mean, if she's not vegan, I guess I would stay away. We're trying to stay away from the eggs for sure, for sure. And the flax is not going to hurt anything, right? She can double up on the flax and the egg. It's fine. They both do kind of the same thing. It's just that I add the flax because I used to add an egg, and that's why I add it, and it helps with the thickening. The other thing that is going to help with the thickening is if you're one of those people that don't want to do this all in one straight, it's a lot to do all at one time, right? To make a showstopper and make something really beautiful, it takes time, right? So if you're gonna, this is a perfect thing to do ahead of time. Put it in the refrigerator and just do it tomorrow or in 2 days from now. It will be just fine, and it will get thicker when it's in the refrigerator.
And one final question, any tricks for deodorizing your hands after you cook with onion and garlic?
That's a good question. There's probably is something on mine that I don't even know because I do so much cooking, Wendy. I never think about it, but I don't have an answer for that. But there probably is a simple solution. I mean, I do know how to, you put a piece of bread in your mouth and so that the onion doesn't make you cry. But to get rid of it on your hands, I don't know. I just, my hands are always in food and it's something I don't think about.
I'm with you.
I don't know. Like I said, that maybe is a thing you could just Google. How do I get the smell out of my hands? I don't think my hands even smell of any of those things. Maybe I'm used to it. I don't know. I cook so much. So here's the spinach. I don't know if any of you saw while we were talking, but I measured it out. And this is just a half a cup, but basically you need a cup of spinach, okay? And I just chopped it. And I think that if you were to buy a box, it would probably be about the same. And I really still feel like there could be more liquid in here. So I'm just putting it in the strainer right now, and you really do want to try to get as much liquid out as possible. And I see that more is coming out because I just chopped it up. And then we're going to put it in here. And again, I told you we can use other greens, but this is just the spinach. Okay, and then we're going to give this a really good mix like this. And we really want that thoroughly mixed. We don't want any clumps. That is super important because when we're going to stuff these manicottis, we're going to do it in a piping bag or a plastic bag, and you don't want the spinach to clog up the hole. So it is important to chop the spinach and then get it thoroughly distributed and mixed up. Okay, and I'm of course going to taste this to make sure that it's good. It could be something. Oh my gosh, it's so yummy. You can taste the nutmeg. I think it could use a hair more black pepper. Another thing you could put, if you were not using salt, which we're not doing, you could put a little bit of lemon zest. That also would kind of help bring up the flavor. But let's get all this moved right now because we're going to do our assembly for now. And I want to dry the counter. This wet. Now I am using these brown rice pasta tubular manicotti noodles. This is Jovial brand. Jovial is part of the company of Bio Nature, the tomatoes that I'm always talking about. Jovial puts out brown rice manicotti, which I think is awesome. And it cooks up pretty fast. Almost all manicotti needs 4 or 5 minutes in the boiling water. You're going to take it out. You're going to just read the instructions on the box and cook the pasta just like the box says. Most of the time it's for 4 or 5 minutes at the most. You're going to drain that boiling water. And then what I do is when I made the pasta ahead of time is I actually, so that the tubes aren't all sticking together, I wet a towel, and a really wet towel, and I put it in a pan. And so these are all ready to go. They're partially cooked. See, they're soft, but they're not like wimpy because they are going to finish cooking in the sauce. And the wet towel helps it from the pasta from not sticking together. Okay, so I'm just looking at the clock to make sure we're doing well on our time. And I'm going to, I don't know, can't look at this little bit that's stuck here. I'm just going to get this out and then put all of it together for later when I'm cleaning everything over here. Okay, so we have our sauce, and I'm going to get, now depending on how many people you're feeding, right? I think the box comes with 12. I don't know, maybe it says on the outside. I don't ever count, but it doesn't tell you how many. It comes with at least 12. 2 manicottis are plenty for a person when you're trying to figure out your serving size, and maybe only 1 manicotti and then heavy on the vegetables with green beans or a salad or Brussels sprouts on the side. But 2 is really plenty for 1 person. That's kind of over the top. And you can choose any size casserole pan. I'm going to go ahead with the larger one right now. But if it was just me by myself, maybe I would just cook a few and then I could make another few tomorrow. You don't have to cook them all at once. And we're going to get a big spoon. Now I have preheated the oven already, and we are going to look for a measuring cup, which here's one. This one's fine. And we're going to put almost, I'm going to turn this off, this marinara. We're going to put almost at least a cup and a half. We're going to get rid of this carrot. We don't really need this carrot. Where am I going to go with the carrot? Right here. We need at least a cup and a half of sauce, maybe even 2 cups, but about a cup and a half is what I estimate, because you want to have plenty of sauce on the bottom and plenty of sauce for the top. Okay, so I've kind of figured out that it's about a cup and a half to 2 cups. You can always add a little more, but you want it to cover the bottom. I'm going to get just a hair more, just so I guess it's more like a cup and 3/4 for this size pan. This is a 9 by 13, and that's going on the bottom already, just like that. Okay, everyone can see that. We're just going to put all this right back in the pot. Okay, now it's time. How are we going to get this pasta, the filling into the pasta? Now, you can use a spoon, but that's a little bit tricky. The best way to do it is with a pastry bag. Now, pastry bags come in canvas bags, or they come in disposable plastic bags. They look like little cones. I have a whole assortment of these kinds of bags. I could not find my wide open tip that normally goes in here, but that's not even necessary to have the tip. So we're going to do it without the tip. If you don't have any of these cone-like pastry bags, you can use a 1 gallon Ziploc bag and put the filling into that, and then you're going to do the same thing with the plastic Ziploc bag as I'm going to do with this, is you're going to cut the bottom of it off. So the best way to do the filling the pastry cup, and let's get a spatula to do it easier, is I have a cup here on the counter, right? And we're just going to, and did I put the extra, I don't think we put the extra black pepper, because I wanted a little more pepper. It is so delicious that I can't tell you how beautiful the filling tastes, and it's a perfect, beautiful texture, and it's going to be that. So I'm just going to start to fill this while, instead of holding the pastry bag, you get yourself a big cup and you start to put the filling into the cup. Okay, and at some point you can take it out of the cup, of course, right? And don't have any big chunks of spinach here. I'm really happy about that. Now, eventually I'm going to take this and I'm going to pull this up, and eventually this has to be pushed down, and I pretty much have filled the bag. You can see that it's full. We might have to fill it one more time. There's still more cheese, but we don't know how many of these we're making yet. And you want to twist your bag, okay, so that stays closed. And then what we're going to do is it's already starting to come out of the hole. There's a hole there. So I'm going to not make another hole, but you would with a Ziploc bag or even with this pastry, you would cut a little tip of it off. And then we take this and we just literally start to squeeze, and it comes out, and it's going to come out to the other end. And as soon as it's out to the other end, then it goes into the pan. So you have it foiled here, and then you're just going to lay them down. And again, these pastas are just al dente. They're cooked just perfectly. They're going to finish cooking in the oven. You do want to have a little bit coming out of each side, just a little bit. And we're filling these up. As I'm squeezing, I'm turning the bag at the top. And anybody, Wendy, have any questions about this process?
So far, no questions on the process, but there is a lot of talk back and forth about the pasta, whether or not, I mean, of course, you could use a different shape pasta as a lentil or a black bean or quinoa or brown rice, any of those. But have you, Carole, seen that shape pasta to fill to make manicotti in either quinoa or lentil?
Definitely not. I thought it was a miracle to find it in brown rice.
Yes.
I thought it was a miracle to find brown rice, and I thought it was awesome that it was such a good brand. I have looked online personally for other flavors, because I definitely am a person that likes quinoa too, pasta. The regular kind of manicotti is usually made out of semolina, right. And it's a whiter pasta. Doesn't have a lot of nutrition for you. So if that's the only kind that you can find, of course, that's where you're going to have to use. Now you could also, I didn't mention, we talked about manicotti that has these ridges, right, on the outside, the ridges, but you can also use lasagna noodles if you wanted. Maybe you can find lasagna noodles that are cannelloni, that are quinoa flavored, and then cook those al dente, and then just make a roll up, right, of your own roll up, meaning you'll put the lasagna noodle down on the counter, put some filling, and then roll it up. It won't be as long as this is, but it will be just perfect if you found the right pasta that you like. And I'm pretty certain that you can find quinoa lasagna.
Yep. I think I've seen that too. Also, it's a great idea about the roll up. And I remember when I was first going whole food plant-based, Dr. Furman had a phenomenal recipe, not so dissimilar to what you're doing, which was an eggplant roll up.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Exactly. Remember, Carole, we used to make them, those eggplant.
Oh my God, I forgot.
Different than this.
It's an excellent choice.
Yes.
Also, an excellent choice, it would be zucchini. Now, zucchini, the good thing about the eggplant is that it's wide, right? That's the perfect thing. But if you use zucchini, you could make a bunch of little 1-inch things, right? Really small, right? And that the zucchini would actually, I was going to mention that there are big shells, you know, the gigantic shells that you can stuff. That's also a very common thing to do. And if you saw while we're talking, I just refilled this again, right? And I'm just, some of these are just, I don't know if I'm going to use them all right now. I'm just going to get the pan full. That's my goal here.
One more quick question also, Carole, while you're doing that is if you want the manicotti to taste al dente at the very end, meaning including after the baking, you still want that kind of, you know, harder taste. how many minutes should she cook the manicotti in the boiling water?
Well, most manicotti boxes are going to tell you 4 to 5 minutes, right? So I think that if she wants it to be more al dente, ultimately, just don't cook it as long in the oven, right? I'm just going to tell you that you should cook it at 375 degrees for 30 minutes, okay, for 30 minutes. But if you don't want to cook it that long, the whole point of cooking it that long is to make sure the pasta's cooked, right? And make sure everything is warm inside. But I would just shorten the time that you're going to cook the pasta
Cool.
in the oven.
And
Okay.
finally, one last suggestion Jim actually had is you could also use stuffed shells with the
Well, that I said that. I
cream
said that, and
right.
I said the gigantic shells.
Yes.
Those are awesome. And I love stuffed shells, and it's the same exact idea. You would really tighten up all the shells in the pan so that they're butted up against each other and fill all those. But I have not seen alternative durum wheat shells. Maybe at a specialty Italian shop that is in New York, maybe. But I have not in the store. Otherwise, we would be making big shells for sure because I love them so much.
That looks beautiful, by the way. Utterly
So
beautiful and
this is
definitely
the kind of dish. So I'm putting the rest of the marinara. I'm going to have a little bit extra because I didn't do all the pastas and I didn't do all the filling. I have a little bit left for everything, okay? But I'm covering this so that it's really covered so none of the pastas are exposed. There's plenty of sauce at the bottom, okay? Now, normally you would put the mozzarella cheese on top. I don't think it needs to be cheesier. If in the end, when you are ready to serve, you could sprinkle it with a little vegan Parmesan cheese, which we all know there are various recipes. I've made it many times on our cooking demo, which is nutritional yeast and sometimes some almonds, some walnuts ground in it. But I don't think it needs any more richness for me. And I'm taking the fresh basil as we speak. And I'm literally just going to tear it up. I'm not even going to cut it up or chiffonade it. I'm not just going to put it all along just the top. It's for flavor as well as decoration. And then we're going to cover this. I have the oven at 375. And again, we're going to cover it with foil. And our goal is to cook it for 30 minutes. We might be just in time here. I think we're going to be exactly in time to show it at the end.
Carole, you just said you're going to cover it with oil.
Foil.
Foil. Okay.
I'm sorry that you heard foil. I'm so sorry that I did not pronounce things well.
You're just fine. I just didn't hear you right.
I said foil, but things do get lost sometimes in translation. So I'm taking a big piece of foil and I'm going to tighten this. This is going to bring steam inside, which is going to help cook the pasta noodles. The oven is preheated to 375. So this is going in. Now, sometimes I do drizzle. I just want to tell you this. I have a little bit of this filling that didn't have spinach when I made it, when I wrote up the recipe. I had to write things out. And I have a little teeny bit of cheese in this jar that doesn't have spinach. And I could add a little bit of lemon juice or a little bit of water to make this a little runny. In other words, it's the same filling without the spinach is left over in this jar. And I could drizzle some along the top. If you'd like to have some kind of extra whiteness on the top, that is an idea. You would pull a little bit out before you put the spinach in and then make it kind of runny and drizzle it. I have this jar. Maybe when we're serving, we can put a little bit like that on the top. But it's definitely not necessary because I think it's super rich as it is. And the other thing that I just realized is that often put a little miso. I wrote that as an optional ingredient in the filling. I put 1 teaspoon of the chickpea miso. And what does that do? It actually gives it a little more depth and dimension to it. But I didn't do it today. And I have it out on the counter. I just didn't do it. And it is an option on the recipe. So you can put a teaspoon in, or you can leave a teaspoon out. And today we left it out. So it's all fine. And then all of this is for later when I have the other 4 or 5 shells to fill and the rest of the sauce to make another little tiny pan. Now, let's just say you don't want to make any more manicotti. What are you going to do with your wonderful cheese? There's so many things you could do. You could put it in a tortilla shell with a bunch of vegetables and make a nice little appetizer. There's so many things you can do with this extra. You could put it on toast if you want. But for now, we're done with this. And Wendy, is that all the questions basically for the manicotti that's in the oven? Did we get everything answered?
Oops, sorry, my mic was on. We're good to go.
We're good to go. Excellent. So that's in the oven for 30 minutes. I'm watching the clock. It might be exactly done when we're done. It might not be done, but let's just see how we go. The next thing that we're going to do now is the cake. Okay, this is, as I mentioned, this is a Forks Over Knives recipe. Darshana, she is a writer for Forks Over Knives, and she makes a lot of yummy things. And this cake I discovered a number of years ago, and I've been making it since, and it's just a beautiful cake. It's really a carrot cake, but it has cornmeal in it, it has whole wheat flour in it, and it has cranberries. So it's very pretty with the orange and the red, and is definitely something that you could bring to a party or when you're having people over, and it lasts for a number of days, and it's just a good cake. It's not a layer cake, it's made in a loaf pan, so it's super simple. So we're going to do the recipe right now, and I'm making a little changes. I wrote out the recipe as is presented on the website, but I've made a few little changes, okay? First of all, she has a half a teaspoon of salt that I'm omitting entirely, okay? This is something that I do frequently. If a recipe calls for salt, I just ignore it. I don't say, the other day a friend of mine said, oh, I found a great recipe, Carole, for you. I think you'll love it, but it has oil in it, and so I'm not giving it to you. And I said, what? Wait a minute. You must share with me. And if it doesn't need the oil, I'll figure out what to replace it with. So don't let these kinds of things stop you from making something. If you're trying to live a more healthy lifestyle without the sugar, salt, and oil, just take the recipe and make your adaptations. And maybe sometimes you have to make it one time the way the recipe is, and then the next time, I've adjusted this recipe numerous times because I've made it. And today we're doing one other change that I didn't expect to make. So yes.
Sorry, quickly on adapting things. A quick question came in. Can you make muffins out of the cake batter?
Oh, for sure. I think so. And you can make different size. We're going to use a regular loaf pan today, just like a regular size loaf pan. What does that mean? It's like 9x3 or 9x4, regular loaf size pan. But I've also made smaller loaves. So this would be a great gift if you have the little small loaf pans. You could put it in the loaf pans. Well, you just have to learn when you're not, you want to you'll learn when you make it one time how much it rises. So if you're going to make muffins, how much are you going to put in the muffin pan? Halfway, 2/3 the way, 3/4 of the way. This rises some because it has a tablespoon of baking soda in it, but baking powder. But it rises some, but it doesn't rise a lot. So when I make it you'll see when we make it how full the pan is, and then we have a finished one. So let's just go through the recipe so you know what we need to do. Okay, we need to have a cup of plant-based milk. It can be any kind of plant-based milk, oat, almond, soy, whatever you want. This is 1 cup, okay? And then we need to also have, I'm going to kind of skip around in this recipe because I kind of do it in my own head. She suggests 1 teaspoon of cider. That again can be apple cider. It could be regular vinegar if that's all you have. If you don't eat vinegar, it could be lemon juice. Okay, what we're doing is we're souring the milk so it's more like a buttermilk. And I just want to get a teaspoon here because I realized I didn't really measure out the apple cider. The apple cider that I use is this big bottle of Bragg's apple cider vinegar, and we need 1 teaspoon. That comes later on in the recipe, but I just want to get it in there because in my mind, milk and vinegar or lemon juice kind of go together because that is going to sour the milk. Okay, so I've got that done, and I'm just going to get rid of this over here. I have so many things that get so all over the place. Okay, the next thing we need is 2 cups of grated carrots. What does that mean? It means that you've grated the carrots. You can do it in a food processing machine. I did mine by hand on one of these box graters, and I used the big holes. Okay, you want 2 cups. Okay, she says here 2 carrots. That doesn't mean anything. I had carrots that were this big, and I needed almost 3 carrots and a half. So just grate the carrots and then measure 2 cups of carrots. That's ultimately what you need is 2 cups. Okay. Then we also need, we have the milk, the carrots, and we need 3/4 of a cup of cranberries. Now you can use frozen cranberries. I'm using the kind that are out during Thanksgiving. These are organic, fresh cranberries that come in a plastic bag. They're whole cranberries. I chop them up with a knife on the cutting board. Now I could just show you really fast. I just want you to realize this. I'll move this bowl for a minute and I'll get my knife here. You don't want, when you're measuring out your 3/4 cup, you don't want to put all the cranberries and try to just chop it like you would maybe walnuts. You really want to take each cranberry and cut it in half, right? Now you could put it in a food processor and just pulse it a few times, but you don't want to just dump your cranberries on the cutting board because they're going to roll all over the place. And before you know it, you have several on the floor. Okay, so I'm just showing you. She suggests you could put a few cranberries as decoration on the top. So I have saved a few, but I don't know. I've never decorated the top. I think the chocolate is enough. So we're putting, this is a 3/4 cup measure. I've kind of chopped the cranberries, again, frozen or fresh ones. It doesn't matter. The other thing that we're going to add next is we want her sweetener in this cake is maple syrup. And she suggests 3/4 of a cup. I think that's a lot. Now, when I first made the recipe, I made it just as is using its 3/4 cup. But since then, I've lowered it to a 1/2 cup. And then I actually put this maple syrup in the glass measuring cup, and then I fill the rest of it up with some water because you do need that moisture. So I've cut it back to a 1/2 cup and I just fill up the glass measure. So this is half maple syrup and a quarter, so it's a 1/2 cup of maple syrup for me and then a 1/4 cup of water, and I've made up the difference. Now you could use date paste. I haven't tried this particular recipe, but I'm sure that it would work. This is acting as a sweetener, and you need moisture, right? Because we're going to put 2 kinds of flour that are very absorbent, and we do need as much moisture as possible. So I'm just going to mix this a little bit like this, and we need to have both cinnamon. We need a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1 tablespoon of baking powder. And we need 1 cup of whole wheat flour. And we need 1 cup of cornmeal. Not corn flour, not polenta, but cornmeal. Now, you're going to possibly laugh at me, but we had a storm here of snow the other day, and I literally shopped for our cooking demo from memory. And I just assumed in my head that I had plenty of cornmeal because I'm a corn person and I always have cornmeal, like always, always, always. Today I went to the cabinet and I needed to make this cake 2 times, and I realized, oh my gosh, I don't have enough cornmeal. And this was like, oh no. And so what am I doing? I have this 2 cups of cornmeal. It's no, it's not 2 cups. It's a cup and a half. This is a cup and a half measure. There is yellow cornmeal on the bottom half of this, but I had a big jar of this amazing purple Tamaya cornmeal that we have here in New Mexico, and I often make cornbread with it, and it's so delicious that I thought, you know what? I'm out of cornmeal. I could either make it up with more whole wheat flour, or I have this purple cornmeal, so I'm just now going to put purple cornmeal and yellow cornmeal in this bowl. Have I ever done this before? No. But will it make the color of the cake a little darker? Yes. But does that matter? No. I maybe have discovered something awesome, because maybe it will be purple with red cranberries and orange. It might look better than the yellow. Who knows? But I'm ad-libbing here because I have to. And I just want to show you that it happens to the best of us. Okay? I, again, thought, how could I be out of cornmeal? It just never happens. Never, ever, ever. But it did today. So I am having, so this is definitely darker than I'm used to seeing, but that's okay. And we're just mixing this up like
Carole?
any kind of quick bread, right?
Carole,
Yes.
while you're mixing, quick question. The printed recipe says a half a tea with a capital T of cinnamon. Do you want to confirm if it's a teaspoon or half of a tablespoon?
You know what? You're right, Wendy. I put in a half a teaspoon, and it is a tablespoon. You are absolutely right. Thank you for
What of
that.
our audience members caught
And
it.
you know what? I think mentally, for me, I like cinnamon very much, but I don't love cinnamon. I know that sounds crazy because most people are cinnamon crazy, but I'm not cinnamon crazy. So I think in my head, I have cut the cinnamon back on my own, but it is definitely, I wrote it up exactly how she had it, and it's a big T, and it's half a tablespoon, and a half a tablespoon is a teaspoon and a half. That's how much. So I basically have put in less. And
Great. And I'm just going to take the opportunity to answer another series of questions that have come in. It really has to do with this individual's dietary needs. But for chronic B12 deficiency, you really need to take a B12 supplement. You're right. You're not going to get it just through nutritional yeast. And in terms of sodium deficiency, I also had a sodium deficiency, and I'm not a doctor and I'm not a nutritionist. I'm just an average human being, but my doctor recommended 200 milligrams a day, which is about the equivalent of a half a teaspoon. So if you're going to do sodium for sodium deficiency, a half a teaspoon a day, or you can do it in the form of, I think, 1 teaspoon of miso a day. And in terms of what kind of cinnamon to use, Ceylon cinnamon is the cinnamon that is considered most nutritional and healthful. There's a piece about it on Dr. Joel Furman's website, but you can use regular cinnamon as well. Carole, do you want to comment on that?
There's so many kinds. I mean, of cinnamon, the Ceylon is a good one. Vietnamese, sometimes people prefer a Vietnamese cinnamon. There are so many different kinds. And Wendy, what is that company that we were buying from for a little while? The burlap and
yeah.
I can tell you what it is if I go to my cabinet. But they make a cinnamon that our friend is so crazy about. Burlap and Barrel. Burlap and Barrel makes a cinnamon that is like out of this world, but you definitely have to order it online. for sure. It's not something you find in the store at all. And I think when you find good cinnamon, it's worth getting for sure, because cinnamon is a really specific flavor, and having it be the best kind of cinnamon is just like buying really good balsamic or really good anything that's really good. Cinnamon is one of those things that can really make a difference.
Right. And I'll just add that I just looked up online, and the comment about Ceylon, it says true cinnamon from Ceylon, harvested from the Cinnamonium verum tree, comes directly from Sri Lanka, and the true origin. It is the true origin of Ceylon cinnamon. It's soft, sweet, and floral cinnamon that's underrated but versatile for both sweet and savory cooking. The cinnamon from Vietnam, it seems, has higher volatile oils or something. It's saying, anyway, you could look up the difference online, but yeah, that's
And
it.
like I said, it is a taste. It's a matter of taste, right? You find the cinnamon. You go to Kula stands, they're gonna have like 10 kinds of cinnamons,
Correct.
right? On Lexington and 28th Street, you're gonna see 10 kinds of cinnamon, and it really is like try it. I'm not against cinnamon when I say that I don't love cinnamon. I like cinnamon. It has a purpose, but I'm not in love with cinnamon. I'm not one of those people that like want cinnamon even on my oatmeal.
Right.
You know, even when you're in a coffee shop getting a special coffee and they want to put cinnamon on top, I'm like, please don't do that. You know, because that's just how I feel. Now, it's important that I show you what we're doing. We've seen this many, many times because I've made many loaf breads. Or this is more of a cake than a bread, but it is firm. Like it's kind of like a quick bread, but it really is cake-like. I'm using a regular loaf pan. I've cut the parchment paper so that it's long, going the long ways, right? Doesn't matter which piece you put in first. It really doesn't. You can put in the short piece and then the long piece. It doesn't matter, however you do it. But you're basically, this is so that we don't have to use any grease for the pan, okay? This is gonna be what lifts out easily. Now, it is kind of movable in there until you get the first bit of batter in there. So my batter is very purple, okay? I just want you to know I have never made this cake with purple cornmeal. It's usually very yellow, and but today it's purple, and I maybe discovered something. Who knows? We might like it better. You never know. And we're good. You're going to see that in this pan, this bread comes, I would say, about a ½ inch from the top, okay? And so if you're using different size pans, whether it's a muffin or you're using the tiny little, what I call gift-giving loaves, I'll get the gift-giving loaf out. These are what I call gift-giving loaves, these tiny small pans. You would fill it to not quite the top, in these small pans, probably about a ½ inch, because the bread doesn't rise a lot, but it does rise. Okay, not a lot, but it does rise. And I've just smoothed out the top, and this is going to go in a preheated oven of 350 degrees. Now, I'm going to cook this cake later. I'm not cooking it now because we have the manicotti in the oven. I'm just going to put this aside, and I'm going to show you that this morning I did have enough yellow cornmeal to make the cake as is. And see, these were the sides. I literally pulled the entire thing right out of the loaf pan, and I'm just going to take the paper off just like this. Okay, we can even put it right now onto a display board if we like. I have my little New York, my friend got me a cutting board so I wouldn't forget what New York looks like, the shape and the cities and all the places in New York. And I'm going to just take this paper off. Now, you could do the dripping of the icing still on the paper and then carefully move it, but it's not going to drip so much. So I think it's okay just to move it to there, okay? And what we're doing right this very minute is I made a double boiler here, and I have a small pot, which I filled with some water, maybe an inch or so, and then I have a bowl that perfectly fits. If you don't have a bowl that perfectly fits the pan, that's okay. Basically, you just want, if the bowl was too big, that's an okay thing. As long as the water is in there, it's going to be simmering, and it's basically starting to melt this chocolate. Okay, that's what's happening. And then we want to take 2 tablespoons. So this is a half a cup of chocolate. And what kind of chocolate am I using? There are places, I think I've mentioned it before, I believe I've not ordered from them before, in Santa Barbara. It's a chocolate company, and they do make chocolate morsels without any cane sugar or any kind of junky things. It's fairly expensive, but I have tended to use this Lily's baking chocolate. They're dark chocolate. It has a little bit of stevia in it, but it has no other added sugars. So there's no cane sugar, and it's pretty, it's not the perfect chocolate, but it is better than the other chocolates, is what I want to say. So I measured out a half a cup of that chocolate. I put it in the bowl over the simmering water, and then I have 2 tablespoons of plant-based milk. Any kind of milk will do. Almond, soy, oat, whatever makes you happy. Any of that is good. Okay, so this I keep in the freezer. I just throw the chips in the freezer so that I'm not snacking on them. I kind of forget about them until I'm needing to bake something. Again, I remember it's another thing like the cornmeal that I always think I have in the house. And when they're on sale at the holiday time, I tend to buy a bunch of bags, throw them in the freezer, and forget about them. And so that's something I always know that I have. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a little whip somewhere. I have that. You could use a spatula, whatever. And you want to be careful touching this bowl that the chocolate is melting in, because it's over hot water. Okay, so you don't want to burn yourself, but the chocolate is melting really nicely. Now, years ago, when I used to do this, I would add oil in the old days, or a big chunk of butter, but this is perfectly fine, just the chocolate and the plant-based milk. It's not as rich. If you really were wanting your ganache to be rich, you could use some coconut milk. This is a kind of frosting that's not like when you're frosting a double layer chocolate cake. You could use something like this, but I tend to, when I make a chocolate icing for a cake, I actually use a sweet potato or an avocado and some cocoa. So there's all sorts of ways of making chocolate icing. I just want you to know that. So this is like, this water's starting to boil. Okay, I'm going to lower that entirely. We've melted this successfully. It's near perfect. I think it is perfect. I'm just going to make sure. And then I'm going to find a spatula. I don't know, maybe everything I have is dirty in the sink here. And we're just going to, if you think it's a little thick for your preferences, you could add a little bit more milk. It's, again, a half a cup of chocolate to 2 tablespoons of milk. You're welcome. And the minute you take it off the burner, it's already starting to get thick already, just already. And this is like a ganache. It's really, really creamy and delicious. And I'm just kind of putting it on the top. It's going to get hard. Again, if you wanted it to be a little runnier, you could add a little more milk, and then it would drip down the sides if you prefer that as a kind of technique. So the way that it looks is really up to you. But this is going to be a big, thick layer of chocolate. And I'm just getting it so that it's kind of all twisted and all looking nice on the top. Everybody, maybe there's more down there. And that's pretty much it. Now you could make patterns, right? You can go across the top and make it go like that. You can run a tin of a fork over it. Whatever is your fancy, right? But you just, and then you can rub some down the side if you like. I'm just gonna do that right now. Just a little bit on the side. But you don't have to spend too much time on it. So that's pretty much it. That's the cake. And then she suggests that you save a few of the tablespoons and put a few of these on top. That makes it more festive, right? I feel that if you're going to do that, let's get a knife really fast here. I don't know where. I'm smelling the manicotti for sure. The house smells so great. We're going to take that out of the oven in just minutes. And Wendy, I might send you into announcements because you have so many good ones. But let me just finish this first and just show you that if you're going to decorate the top, cranberries are tart, right? So I think that I would really chop up the cranberries so they weren't like halves that we put inside the cake. We put in just half. I would really chop up these so that they're smaller, so you're not, getting a burst of tartness unless you like that. And I think it would just be nice just to decorate the top. You see, that looks better than having big ones sitting on the top. Of course, I never do this part. I just am ready to go into the cake, and but I'm just showing you how you could make it so beautiful and so festive for any holiday party that you're invited to, right? It's up to you how you finish it off. And then this one's been cooling, and I actually think we're okay to take a knife, or not the knife I have there, but we could just cut it. Let's just see what it looks like when we cut into it. And it looks delish. I don't know if you can see how pretty it is.
It's so pretty. It looks just like the picture. And can you also turn the plate so that the audience can see the side of the cake?
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
I just put a little bit on the side. If you want to add a little bit of milk, a little bit more so that it's more runny. The chocolate, the minute that you take the chocolate off the heat, it starts to harden, okay? So, and again, I would probably make a couple of cuts, couple pieces, cutting it. It cuts so beautifully that I would serve it like that. I would just bring it like that,
It's absolutely beautiful. We have a slew of questions. Are you game for?
I'm game. We're going to take the manicotti out. I would like it to be a few more minutes. So maybe what we'll do, Wendy, is answer the questions. You go into your 100 wonderful announcements, and then you come back to me and we'll show the manicotti.
I can assure you there are only 75 announcements, not 100, but nonetheless, there are a lot. Okay, let me give you the questions, and then yes, we'll do exactly what you said. So is the cake sweet enough to eat it without the chocolate topping?
It's hard to answer. I think it is sweet enough. Again, I cut back on the maple syrup. Maybe, the first few times I made it exactly as is. And it's over time that I've kind of adjusted it for my own preferences. So I can only suggest that I don't think it needs the chocolate topping. I think it would be just perfect as is. Doesn't need that. I just think the chocolate topping is adding decadence. And we're trying to be making a showstopper for the holiday.
Excellent. These are all quick questions. So it was noticed that you don't use vanilla in the cake. Would adding vanilla ruin the flavor profile, or could she experiment with vanilla?
Oh, I would definitely. Vanilla never hurts. And something I would do if you had it, because I use a lot of this where I work, I would use orange extract. Mm-hmm. I think orange extract, but make sure you get a good one, not a cheap one. Not McCormick's, get a good one. or you could use almond. And I think almond would be like delicious. Mm-hmm. So any of those things, the cake as is, but it's up to you all to run with it, right? You could add walnuts if you wanted, or wouldn't it be beautiful with pistachios and have green and red dots for the holidays, right? It's up to you all to do it. That's why I wrote the recipe up as is, and you all can make your tweaks on your own.
Perfect. So another tweak that was asked about, not quite a tweak, but can almond flour be used instead? She said instead of wheat, but I know cornmeal is really the basis.
You know,
but
I
in
would
any
probably
case,
go I make 1,000 million quick breads at my work where I work, and we make a lot of gluten-free breads. And I would just use instead, if you're gluten-free, I would use the cup for cup. There is Bob's Red Mill makes, I think, what they call 1 cup to cup one. A lot of gluten-free flours that you buy. Bob's Red Mill makes its own bag, and it literally is cup for cup. And that I would use probably over the almond meal, but you could try the almond meal. You could try.
okay. Okay,
It
good.
too is absorbent like the flour, like the whole wheat, like it's gonna suck the moisture, right? That's why I say it's almost worth it to make the recipe as is, so you see the texture, and then you start to make your own changes.
Sounds good. Yes, there was a question about that. If you adjust the recipe and substitute almond flour, do you need to decrease or increase the liquid? Excuse me, I have to cough. But
You're gonna have to see, it's really hard. I haven't done it, and I say this all the time. I'm like a broken record. The minute you start changing one thing in a baked good, you're in your own science laboratory, right? You're in your own experimental time, and it's okay to experiment. It's the only way to accommodate everyone's taste preferences and their own diets. But you have to be willing to be failing. And failure is still a win because you're going to learn from it, right? And if you think I have figured this out, Wendy, over 1 month's time, no, I have not. It has taken me a few years to figure out how to make things that are equally as delicious as they used to be when they had real butter and sugar in them.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to fail. And failure is winning, not failing, because you learn from every science experiment.
It's a good philosophy moving forward. No, it really is. They say fail to learn. No, learn to fail or fail to learn. Okay, another question. These are the cranberries cooked, and could you blend up cranberries and water in a vitamin? Well, I'll start with one. Are the cranberries cooked?
No.
Okay, so these are raw cranberries.
Yes, and they're either fresh ones that you get in a plastic bag, like that they have at this time of year in the produce section, or you can use frozen ones.
Got it. Okay, good. And could you blend up the cranberries and water in a Vitamix and make a cranberry drizzle to drizzle over the chocolate? Would that work? I think
that
you
would
need
be
to
delicious and great, and maybe then I would put a little dates. I would.
Because you'd have to squeeze the cranberry.
I would take a medjool date, 1 or 2, and pit it, and then put it in the blender with the thing and water, and make a wonderful cranberry sauce. I think it's a great idea, but you need a little sweetener.
Exactly.
Right? So, and the medjool date will be perfect because it's pasty.
And our favorite fan from Maryland says, great recipes and another outstanding Chef Carole presentation. I think I got all the questions. I'm just quickly going to go through. A lot of thank yous. Carol says, hope there'll be more in 2024. Yep, there will be more. I'll explain that. Orange Extra sounds great. Thank you. Appreciate. Sorry, everybody. We did go a bit later than usual. I do have announcements. Please stick around for them. And yeah, I love that failure is winning. Okay. Before you take the manicotti out, bear with me, everyone. I'm going to jump into our plant-powered metro announcements. The biggest ones are truly the most exciting month ahead. We have Dr. Michael Greger coming to New York to launch his new book, How Not to Age. and he'll be speaking and he'll be signing books, and there's receptions to meet with him. And we're having a particularly celebratory month because this is our month, usually now and also in March, for our biggest fundraising campaign. As many of you may or may not know, most of our programs are offered for free, and we also do a tremendous amount of educational work in underserved communities throughout all 5 boroughs and in Long Island, and even occasionally in New Jersey in terms of live events. Many of you I know are not either in the United States, for those of you in Canada, welcome, and or across the states, but nonetheless, a lot of the work we do is really about building the movement and about encouraging and teaching people to eat a whole food, plant-based diet, not only for their own or your own personal health, but also to avert climate change, the disasters of climate change, getting people off animal products and or helping people, resign from animal products, and then of course prevent the cruelty of towards animals. But our biggest focus is really on health, personal health, and the health of the planet. And by default, that of course is going to be the health and compassion towards animals. So back to Dr. Michael Greger and our fundraising. If you're in New York or in the New York area, on Wednesday, December 6th from 4 to 5:30, Dr. Greger will be speaking at SUNY Downstate Medical School in their alumni auditorium. Please join us. He'll sign books and he'll be available for questions. And then following the presentation will be a unique reception at a home in Tribeca for those of you who are able to attend. And it's very limited space, but both of these you can sign up on our events page on ppmny.org. And then on Thursday, December 7th, particularly for you members from the JCC, we've got Dr. Greger coming to the JCC, Marlene Myerson JCC, on Thursday, December 7th from 7:30 to 9, and he'll be signing books before the event starting at 6:15, and books are available at a discount price. And all of these events, live events, are really to raise funds both for nutritionfacts.org, Dr. Greger's non-for-profit, and for Plant Powered Metro. Any amount that you're able to donate this month, you can go to our website and donate. Will be matched dollar for dollar up to $100,000. So please think generously, not just about this show or our work, but the way our programs really ripple out into the community. We're very, very active in a million and one other ways. In the other communities of this area. Okay, then Sunday, December 10th, again in the New York area, we have our second annual holiday dessert potluck, an exchange of holiday cookies and cakes and all kinds of things. And there'll be a taste contest and prize giveaways. And that's Sunday, December 10th from 2 to 4. And then again on December 12th, we have an incredibly special online event called Nourishing Families with Plant-Powered Nutrition, with co-authors Brenda Davis and Dr. Reshma Shah. And this talk will be on the impacts of a plant-based diet on growing children. And that'll just be 1 hour online from 6 to 7. And then finally, registration will be open for our January 21-day Jumpstart. Finally, our next class with Chef Carole will be on December 7th. However, we're not exactly sure what time, whether it'll be around 2-ish or whether it'll be our regular slot at 5. So stay tuned on the Plant Powered Metro events page, but you can mark December 7th. The time might be changing that day. The rest of our series for the year will be at our usual time. And then a huge thank you to all of you who've already donated and to those who participated in our Plantathon marathon. And it's still, as you've heard me say throughout this, it's not too late to donate. We have to the end of the year where your donations will be matched. Okay, I believe that might be it. We really, really do hope you participate with us. These in-person events, if you're in the area, really are fun, and it's a great way to continue to build the movement. And definitely come join us online. Okay, Carole, back to you for a presentation of the manicotti.
Okay, so we're done. It's perfect. It's here. It literally could go to the table just like it is. Okay. While I took off the foil, told you I had a little jar left of just a teeny bit of filling that was just no spinach. I drizzled it across the top, and I just baked it for like a few seconds more without the. But it's ready. It could go literally to the table just as is. You would get a spatula, right? And then take it out. And here's like a serving would be like this. It's so delicious. I'm practically salivating as I'm speaking to you, because this is one thing that I really thought that I would miss when I became a vegan, is eating gooey and ooey things like pizza, which I make regularly. But this is really delicious, and I think it is just the perfect holiday meal. So I wish everyone a good remaining part of 2023, and we'll see you next year, hopefully. And thank you to the team. We work really hard, all of us, to bring you our cooking demo. Thank you for another year, and best of health, and eat well.
Thank you, Carole. It really does look exquisite. I mean, really, the cake and the manicotti and the cake are showstoppers. I may very well use these recipes for our own holiday celebrations. And to everyone who has joined us, thank you, thank you, thank you for participating with us all year. That's Isla, I'm always mispronouncing her name, Isla, who's joined us on the screen. Carole's very nutritionally well-fed doggy. But we're all wishing you a very happy holiday season. Stay healthy. A huge thank you to James Spellos, who's behind the scenes, without whom we could not do this show. He's our producer, certainly our tech producer, and keeps us all sane throughout the year. And also a thank you to Alan Smithy for all of his help during the show. And yeah, and thank you all.
So thank you, Wendy. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, everyone. Goodbye. Sorry we went a bit longer, but enjoy your cooking. Stay healthy.
Thank you.